Global Blockchain Business Council is the leading global industry association for the blockchain technology ecosystem. It has 500 institutional members, 178 ambassadors from 95 jurisdictions and disciplines. And with me is the CEO of the Global Blockchain Business Council and my friend Sandra. Great to see you.
So great to see you, Jane.
Yeah. So let's talk about Web3 today, because that's been kind of a new application, fairly new for blockchain. I mean, what do you think is the promise of Web3? Where do you think it's going?
So I would think of Web3 as your next generation evolution of the internet, but now data is more than just information through email. Data is now 360 degrees and also value, meaning it could be money, what people define as money. It can be actually a digitized physical representation of things that move around in this digital world. So it is more than just cryptocurrencies. I think a lot of people now define Web3 as using blockchain technology as the underpinning in order for the decentralized systems of the promise of decentralized systems to come into play. And the potential is pretty big.
Yeah.
The question now is, how do we get there?
That's always the question, it seems like. Yeah, no, it's a whole new world. I mean, with metaverse and NFTs, and it's all these things happen so fast. And what has your journey in Web3 been like so far? Have you noticed any effect of being a woman in Web3?
So I'm going to focus on one area that really exploded last year and during the pandemic was something that you've already mentioned, which is the metaverse and the use of non-fungible tokens, NFTs, as sort of the en vogue killer app for how people, a lot of artists and different mainstream folks got into NFTs as collectibles. I think of that as a use case. I think it was one where it attracted a lot of interest because all of a sudden you could use this technology to not only create a bunch of digital collectibles that you could sell and trade around the metaverse, but also it's a representation of something that I think is really important actually at the very base and sort of almost boring level, which is it is a unique digital certificate that's encrypted that says that you are the owner of that thing. And as long as you are holding it and you secure it, you do what you will with it. Whether you want to sell it, you hold it, you show it. There's lots of different possibilities, but it's that proof of ownership on a system, transparent to all, that ownership belongs to you, I think is something that's very critical, especially for the artist and creative community. And you mentioned women getting into the space, or myself as well, my experience. I think that is one thing that has been really cool about watching the NFT space is the number of women that have gotten into it, unlike some of the criticisms you may or may not have heard related to how many women are actually involved directly into cryptocurrency trading, for example. Mm-hmm. Now, I think it's getting better, but we still need more and more women. We need diversity. We need lots of different voices to come in. And I hope it's a more democratizing technology through NFTs.
Yeah, no, and I was at NFT.nyc and there were, I say majority men, but a lot of women and a lot of women working at the booths and explaining their games and things like that. So it was noticeable. And it's talking about there was actually a speaker there, a lawyer that was specializing in NFTs, and he goes, in the end, you just own a hash. You own a hash, and it was just fascinating to listen to him and think about that. And I don't know how, I mean, you got to have a legal basis for it. We got to prove ownership. So
I think the more I speak to the artist community, musician community, anyone who creates anything, you forget how much fraud and potentially stolen goods or stolen IP there is in the world. And it is actually empowering. If you create something and you could actually put it and certify it on a blockchain and then you have a hash of it, well, that means something. And yes, we need to have a legal basis for that. And the laws need to come into play to recognize that. But that is an additional, I think, very important empowerment tool. And I'm going to go back to Web3 as not only a decentralizing force, but actually a people movement. This is bringing power back to people to have power over their own data, to have ownership over their own things, especially in a digital world where, let's face it, Web 2 is largely owned by a couple very large corporations.
That multi-trillion-dollar organizations really is, and that wasn't how it was supposed to be, but somehow we ended up there. So, so let's talk about females in the Web3 crypto area. I mean, what kind of things can people like us do to make women feel comfortable in this industry?
Absolutely. And one thing that we're seeing at the GBC is an increase of females, young, older, career changers, lots of different women coming into the fold. We need lots of different skill sets. And I think people should not be afraid. And I think the more welcoming we are and the more lower to barrier to entry we make getting into the space in terms of access to information, which is what we try to do, is provide lots of educational materials and tools so that people can get into whatever aspect of blockchain they would like to get into. I think that's really important, but also leaders like yourself and myself and others just being out there and saying, hey, if we can do it, you can do it. And if you're interested, you're welcome to join. And I think we need to continue that welcoming spirit of collaboration, which we know this technology really inspires and does and requires.
Absolutely. No, that's really what the beauty of it is, how it does democratize things. So, I mean, what is coming up with the Blockchain Business Council, your business ventures?
So a lot, we're growing quite a bit. I know that some folks are obviously struggling, and there are definitely doldrums related to the crypto winter that's happening. But for those who are in other pockets of blockchain technology, there's an explosion of growth going on. And you see that when you see certain startups that are already raising Series A, B, and C. Some are going to be IPOing in the coming years. Others are foundation structures, they're DAO structures, and they're experimenting and they're growing. I think DAOs are going to be super exciting. Obviously, there are legal question marks and governance question marks about how a DAO should actually be run, and there's lots of experimentation going on. But all of this to me is, again, building is happening everywhere. Innovation is happening everywhere. I've been on the road for the last 7 weeks. I've just seen constant optimistic views actually related to this technology, that if you look at the long term, this is an upward trend. This is where opportunities will lay. And so for anyone who is a career changer, who is young and older, it doesn't matter. Get into this space because we are on a journey here. And it's going to be multi-decades to come.
Well, and there's a lot of fun people in this industry, by the way. So, and it is very welcoming, and just a lot of kind of interesting characters from interesting backgrounds. So, and to your point, I think if you just go on YouTube and start to watch videos, or the Blockchain Business Council, just to kind of get, a lay of the land, and give you a little bit of background, there's a ton of information out there to learn about it. So what are you most excited about, like, of all these different directions and applications?
So there's just a couple things I think we're going to be spending a lot of our time on. And in one bucket, it's kind of fundamental boring stuff, which are standards, common language for the entire industry to look at adopting. We have the token taxonomy framework, which is basically standardization of anything that is tokenized, and that's open source. Everything we do is open source. And we're trying to figure out ways to bring lots of different groups together, because without the common language and standards, you can't really build and scale. That's one piece. The other piece, what I'm really excited about, is the fact that we've got multiple industries, not just financial services, but we're now talking about healthcare, the energy sector, climate change, green economy. That's going to be another multi-trillion-dollar industry, which is, we know climate change is terrible right now and all the horrible things that are happening around the world related to climate change. But what are we going to do about it? And I think starting with tokenization of carbon credits, emissions, offsets, and those markets, but going well beyond that. I think those who are really interested in the green economy and moving towards renewables and moving towards just using our resources on Earth better, there's going to be a lot of opportunity that also include blockchain technology.
Yeah. Well, and I think coming back to women and just, kind of getting more women in the industry, I think whatever you're interested in, there's probably a blockchain application for it.
Yes.
So if it's fashion or art or the environment,
absolutely,
whatever. So any final words of advice about getting into this industry?
Firstly, I would say one caveat there. In any industry that's growing very, very quickly, there are folks out there that are scammers and unfortunately bad actors in the space. always keep a skeptical lens on someone who's asking you for stuff, because at the end of the day, there are lots of free and good, credible groups that are providing free information. So you shouldn't necessarily have to pay for it. I know there are courses out there that may be worth the money if you want to pay for it, but I just be very skeptical and make sure you do your homework. That's number one. And number two, talk to your friends, see who might be also in the space, because it is a very collaborative community and technology. There are people everywhere. If you can find someone who's a second degree away and reach out to that person, go have a coffee and see what you can learn. Go to a conference. As you said, you were just at an NFT conference. Check that out. There's lots of different ways to learn. Stick with people and organizations that you feel comfortable and are credible, and start small. Start with something you're actually interested in, and you'll be surprised how many doors open up and opportunities open up over that period. It's a journey.
And there really is something, we both live in New York, but I think there's something almost everywhere, every night in crypto or blockchain, meet and greets and speakers and things like that, tons of opportunities.
Absolutely. I'll give you one short vignette. I went to Panama for a tourism and hospitality industry conference. I met an NFT artist. It was my first time in Panama. It just shows me there is innovation happening everywhere. And she was amazing. I looked at some of her artwork and I was just like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
And it's just something about this technology brings lots of people together from around the world.
Very true. And you get to go places that you may have never gone. I know you've been so many
Absolutely.
places. So it's all very exciting. I'm feeling very fortunate to be a part of it. And thank you so much, Sandra, for joining and sharing your expertise.
Thank you, Jane. And I'm grateful too every day that we get to be a part of this.
Yeah.
Thank you.